Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to your favorite show on the land, Not So Complicated, a show brought to you by the Innovation Consortium, a show that breaks down everything and we bring it to a layman's understanding. And like I always tell you, you either be here or you be nowhere. So sit back, relax, and learn with us. So today on the panel, I have Jukes, we have Byron, and then D Mama, the only guy who likes saying about his drink. So sit back, relax, and learn with us. And like I told you, today's topic is about thin shell. And our main guest today is Jukes Kwagala. Jukes, glad to have you on the show.
Same here.
So the topic today is about thin shell concrete. Please, tell us about thin shell concrete.
Okay, we've talked about concrete before, precast
Yes.
and one. So I think we all have an idea of what concrete is.
Sure.
So we'll now mostly talk about the thin and then the shell.
Oh, okay.
So concrete is basically cement, sand, and aggregate. Aggregate are stones of whichever size.
Oh, mixed.
So when you combine that with thin, it means now for it to be thin, the concrete has to be,
Oh,
the
little.
stones have to be small. That's
Oh.
a basic understanding.
Oh,
Then a
thin shell.
Yeah, then a shell structure. Imagine an egg. Imagine something that has maybe a curved shape or something.
Something
So-
that has petrol pumps.
Yeah, not that kind of shell, but you know the logo of shell is based on
On a
on
shell.
an actual seashell. So it's something like that. So that's a shell that occurs in nature. Now we're talking about a technology where you combine all these aspects. So thin shell concrete, if I can define it in my own words, as the show is to make a thin layer of concrete,
Concrete, yes.
that forms a shape that's shell-like.
Sure.
I
Oh,
think, yes, that's
a thin layer of concrete.
Yes. So in this case, our shell has to be reinforced. Reinforced meaning we need to add some strength to it. So in large shells, you would have mitaimbwa. But in thin shell, we use a mesh to give it here.
A wire mesh.
Yeah, so what allows the shell to stand firmly, I could go a bit complex here. So to strengthen the concrete, already it's strong in what we call compression, when you're pushing it down.
And compressing.
But you need to add what we call tensile strength when you're stretching it. So that's what the mesh and the mitaimbwa does to concrete. But in this case, we're using mesh because we want a thin shell.
Okay.
I don't know if I've defined it well enough.
But if I may understand,
Yeah.
what's a thin shell? Is it a house? Is it a roof? Is it?
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, thin shell, that's a good question. Thin shell can be applied to anything. In the models that we have here, we have a shape that we're calling it a hyperbolic shape. A hyperbola is one of those mathematical shapes. So it's
Those
a,
ones disturbed me.
yes, those who did pure math.
Yeah,
and,
equally was so
yeah.
poor.
So you can see this shape has curves in it. So it's because this is a shell that's from a hyperbola. You
Okay.
get, like, it forms these curves, even if these main support frames,
Yes.
which can be in a larger scale, in actual construction, they can be steel, they can be wooden. So when you stretch these materials over this framework, it becomes a shell. So in application, the first layer you put is the cloth in thin shell
Oh.
concrete.
Okay.
So you put the first thing you do is you nail a frame or you weld a frame together. Then you stretch cloth over it. So
Now,
this-
before we go any
Yes.
further, I'd like to tell our viewers that this is just a.
this is a model.
Yes, they might think we're actually talking about this, and they'll. Oh, it's a model of.
Yeah,
The whole-
of one of the projects we've
Okay,
done.
as they will see
Yeah.
on the
As
screen.
you'll see on the screen.
Okay.
So this model helped us see what shape we're going to come out with. We could have done by computer, but we thought this would be better
Much
for
more
us to
better, yeah,
understand.
yeah, sure.
So you first nail a frame together. And interesting, the frame is straight. But when you stretch the cloth over it, it becomes what? it gives you some curves in there. So those are the interesting shapes thin shell can go. So on top of this cloth, you add concrete.
Which
Now-
type of cloth are you talking about?
So in this case, you can use inorganic cloth. You need a cloth that stretches and one that won't rot.
So you
Because
need skinny jeans.
skinny jeans don't stretch, unfortunately.
Some of them stretch.
But we have used, that green uniform people have these days for schools. Those shorts.
Ginger.
That
Yeah.
one. Even kachik is a good material to use.
Oh.
Yes, the first project we did in Uganda with a 90-year-old gentleman in Chitende. I don't remember, it's about 10 years ago. We used kachik, and that's ginger, that bad material, because it's mostly inorganic, it won't rot. So those of you, when you can leave your kachi short there, and it won't rot.
No wonder the Kaunda suits are still around.
So that's it. So then you pour concrete over it. So you apply concrete in thin layers over maybe 4 days to give it strength. So after the cloth, you put the mesh, and then you literally sew the cloth and the mesh together.
Oh.
Then you now mix concrete in small quantities. So in the concrete, in this case we use
Which mesh are you talking about?
we use a chicken wire mesh.
Oh.
Chicken wire because it also stretches
Oh,
better.
yes.
So you don't use ngalama. You can use it, but chicken wire mesh is easier to stretch.
Oh.
It stretches
Okay.
over this, and you can nail it easily.
Sure.
Yeah. So when you apply now concrete here, you mix cement, sand, and then what we call latex. Latex is a milky-like substance, liquid, used to make paint and other industrial chemicals.
Oh.
So it forms a
enamel.
reaction, a chemical reaction that actually produces heat. So we use actually buckets rather than pouring a whole like a drum of concrete over it. So you use buckets such that you apply it in layers
So there
till
are no
they
stones
dry.
in here.
So ideally the stones would be the sand.
Your concrete is incomplete.
No, our concrete, normal concrete has cement, sand, aggregate. Now here you use sand alone because it still qualifies. Yeah, it still qualifies. I think concrete, as long as you mix cement with stones, you have a certain something that can be called
So you're
concrete.
basically saying we can't use plaster. We have to
No, I think it's.
use flour which has some bit of stones in it.
I think it depends on what sand you get, but I think plaster can work. It's just that you risk having clay in it. So it's better to get lake sand and sieve it.
Oh, to
Yeah.
get that
So
fine.
you apply this over maybe 3 days. So after you put one layer, you wait another day, then another day.
You put 3 layers.
Yeah, until the mesh disappears.
Oh.
Yeah, remember you have mesh on top of the
Yes,
cloth.
to have that smooth.
Yeah, so to have a smooth finish, you have the mesh.
Yeah.
You cover the mesh there.
Okay, thank you so much for trying to explain to us about thin shell. But I would like to know, as innovators, we usually have we bring alternatives for some things. So thin shell is an alternative for roofing, construction.
No.
We would like to know.
Thin
Yes.
shell is an alternative for roofing and walling.
Oh, so it's
Yes.
a complete system altogether.
Yes, it can, anything, you can have a thin wall. We once made a proposal for someone to do, instead of doing tents in a game park, you use a thin shell, because it will give you this shape. In what you see in front of us, you already have a roof and walls. So you can use these remaining parts as doors and windows.
Put in
So
glasses.
it
and
has
all
that application. In some of the projects we've done, it's just the roof.
Oh, yeah, you just build and then you roof.
Yeah, then you roof.
Okay.
So, as you can see, you need less material to build.
Maybe one more question. When you're doing this thin shell, now in the roofing application, on the walling application, do you have to do it on top, like you do all this, the meshing?
Hey, camera, what the quarter? Yeah, more.
So Jukes, yeah, back to the point.
Jakusasura.
Jukes, back to the point. So that whole process of pouring all that material until the mesh disappears, does it happen like on top of the building, or it happens down, then you take
Then
it
you,
up,
oh,
or the welding? How does that happen?
Okay, you have to pour it from up. So when you mix all this latex, the sand and the cement, you have a woody like
A porridge like.
a porridge like,
Liquid, okay.
like your woody. So you have to pour it from the top and it comes down to the bottom. So we use plastic brushes because they won't be affected by this mix, and you spread it over the surface.
So what I'm asking, like, if it's a roof,
if it's
you
a
do
roof,
this, well, it is on top of the building.
or you
already,
first
you
make
do
it
go
from down
you
and
take it
then,
up.
You have options to do both. It's
Okay.
not limited. So if you're working at very high heights, like maybe 3 floors up, you may do it while it's up there because you may not have a crane.
I want to take it up there, yeah.
Yeah, but the best way to do it, to get it well and what, is to do it on the ground.
Yes,
But then sometimes the shapes are so complex.
does that
you
mean I
don't-
can do it off-site and just bring it?
Yes,
to
you
the
can
site?
do it off-site as well.
Yeah.
You
So
don't
just
have to-
bring your roof and
It's
you,
very light. A roof that's about the size of, let me put it, the size of a room, which is about 10 by 10 feet, weighs less than
Does
the
that
sun.
mean when I'm going to the game park, as you said, I can carry my thin shell?
I think the limitation there is the truck to carry it, but it's very light.
Okay.
It's very light.
I've seen people carry boats to the game park.
Then you can carry your thin shell structure.
Oi, okay.
You can carry it to anywhere you want. It's very light. Actually,
our tent is about get this end.
Maybe just add on a bit, like it is light, but volume-wise, it is big.
yeah.
oh,
It is light, but volume. That's why you realize if it is a home, when you compare the weight, it carries for like a room of 3 meters by 3
for a
meters.
full house,
It
yeah.
is very light, for 500 kilos. The
Okay.
problem, remember, that volume. It is taken. So the one who wants to take it to the game park, just know your
You're carrying the whole house.
flexibility
So
as a tent.
So in short, the normal housing is you, and I'm the thin shell.
Allah, look at it. There you go. Thank you so very much. And then,
also to add on,
oh, yes,
few things
Byron.
like what was example, that's what's latex and what it's used. I think I'm not the expert, but I've used it. It is basically to remove the pollers within this.
oh, within the mix,
So when
yes.
it is raining after roofing, no water seeps.
It
in.
seals
It seals all
the holes.
So it's more like
Oh.
a sealant.
Yeah,
Oh.
it's a bonding agent between all those.
To remove
So,
those small holes. Oh, thank you so very much. And then I'd like to know the advantages or why we're talking about thin shell. Because I saw the boardroom for Innovation Consortium. It was, I think, constructed with it's a thin shell kind of a bedroom. So I would like to know, as our viewers are going to see in the pictures and the
And
videos,
listeners.
yes, and listeners as well.
Here the picture.
Yeah, the pictures, of course, and the videos. So
so
tell us why thin shell, the advantages possibly.
yeah, so the advantages, I'll list a few. The biggest one is cost. Using thin shell concrete is even cheaper. You'd save even another 30 to 40%.
Oh, really?
So if you're using about 10 million to roof your house, you would need about 6 million to do that, 6 to 7 million to do the same work.
So it is 30% cheaper.
Yes. Now remember, the other advantage is because it's concrete, it doesn't soak in as much heat.
Oh,
Yes.
it reflects.
Yeah, it may not reflect per se. Of course, it can reflect if you use a color on
color
top
that
of it that
reflects,
reflects the
yeah.
heat.
Yes.
Then the other one, it absorbs more sound. So remember our schools, when you would be happy when it rained. Okay, I would be happy. Because you
Byron
wouldn't
is
hear
still
the
happy
teacher.
when it rains.
Yes.
You wouldn't hear the teacher. When,
Yes.
But because it's concrete, it
Oh, the
absorbs most of the
sound is
So the
regulated.
sound insulation.
Yeah, so the sound is
Oh, yes.
regulated, so it dampens the sounds.
Oh,
Then the
that's
other
cool.
one, it's more or less quick to construct.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, you need a few. You could use timber or steel poles or something to put it together. And then it means you can also do it in a far-flung area by carrying very little material.
Oh, yes.
You carry your mesh in rolls.
Mesh.
Unlike an iron sheet, you have to carry a
In
3
case I
meter
want to
piece.
live in
Oh,
a
yeah.
hilly
Even
place,
even a border may find problems, but you can carry things
Rolled
of thin
mesh,
shell in.
timber.
Yeah, you can even use trees, tree poles, straight trees where you are. So
Oh,
it's
yes.
something you can do even in remote areas.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so very much. And let's talk about design. It's a question that has just come into my head. Could we have a couple of designs? Is it only one design that if David has his thin shell, it will possibly look like mine? Tell me how flexible in the designing and the beauty.
Okay, it's actually one of the advantages of thin shell, that it gives you a more interesting shape of roof. If you go for hyperbolic shapes, you know, it's just concrete. You know that you can have it in your conventional Moamba or going one end. It can do all the things a normal roof can do.
And more than
And
that.
more than that, by just choosing a
okay,
hyperbolic
from
shape.
what you've said,
Yeah.
I've just
You can even have it in a round shape if you want it.
Oh, like
An oval, an egg is a shell.
Dan's house.
can
Dan's
have
round house.
so. Okay, from what you're saying, yeah, I believe previously we've had landslides in Bududa and where.
Yeah.
So, for how do they call them? Yeah.
Emergency house.
Emergency housing. Yeah. I
Actually-
think this would be very good because setting up is cheaper, faster.
How long would it take for a house to get done in case I chose to do a thin shell?
Like
You
thin
know,
shelving.
the advantage, one of the advantages, it's not very hard for someone to do thin shell. If you train people to do this themselves, and I hear one of the inventors of this technology told us that when he invented the technology, when they were building a dam in Ghana, I forget my geography very well, they proposed this kind of, when you displace people, because when you do a dam, you have to put a lake
Oh, sure.
and then a flood plain. So you need to displace people to get more pressure from the water. So they was proposing to the Ghana government at the time, I forget, in the earlier part of maybe 50 years ago, to use it, because when you could put up these houses quickly and people could almost build them themselves. So imagine you can put up a roof and then put up the walls later on. So
it was a cheaper
has
option and
that
faster.
advantage, yeah. So you can. So in other words, when you put on the first layer of concrete, people can move in. So on day
Hey.
one, people can move in and use this house. Then they keep
Then you keep
applying the
doing the
layers over the
finishing.
next 3 days.
Oh,
So
yes.
if you use thin shell to build your house and you're using the method where you're using up to down, you could have your house finished in a week.
So basically,
Oh.
signature is a modern kasishira. With
Hey.
complex shapes.
Yeah, without the hope that fire would catch you, because it's concrete. It won't
Oh,
catch
by the
fire.
way, yes,
So maybe
Oh.
Kasovitum should have given us a chance and we would
And,
give them a
I
fireproof,
hope UNESCO is here.
a fireproof material.
oh, yes.
Yeah, even the bars, Centenary Park would have a lot of money from them. So it has that advantage that it's also
I think I've even seen a
fireproof.
market somewhere in West Africa that's made out of thin shell, I think.
Yeah, and then it's very strong. We have a picture that someone, I think, will display for those who will be watching. They have about 7 people, adults, standing on a thin shell concrete.
Really?
Yes, that's about the size of a room. About 7 people are
Standing on
there.
it.
Yes.
Those are
Especially if you use
those are over how many
this shape.
kilograms?
Yeah, let's say each
If
one
you
is
have
about
7
70
pylons,
kilograms.
That is around
Sure.
a ton.
You trying to say that your brother is so heavy?
Yeah, about the weight of a Vitz. Yes,
Yeah,
of a
Maybe
Vitz.
to add on it, on the advantage, if you told someone, either construct me a wall with this kind of a parabolic shape or a roof, I think it would be a nightmare.
for the yeah,
Maybe
no more roofing.
From using no materials which are known, iron sheets, roofing tiles, the chances are they just quit the job.
True, true.
So with
Any
this type of design, you
Gives
can
you-
have any shape.
Gives you a unique design.
So, Jukes, any
Yeah.
challenges?
Yes. You know, concrete is a porous material. People assume that because you have concrete. So you need to take precautions to stop it from leaking. So at the end, after you've done all this, you need to put waterproof paint and then a sealant that you probably have to reapply. Like any house, you have to maintain it.
Yeah, with
You need to take care of it.
sure.
If you don't apply this sealant, your concrete, if water sits for long enough,
Until finally,
it will go through. So don't think you have a waterproof material. So you need to keep applying and take good care of it, maintain it.
sure.
And which is one of the advantages. You can maintain easily. You don't need to call a roofer or someone with a lot of knowledge
Just
to build your thin
apply
shell.
the-
Once you understand the basic,
you
in a
can
day
do
of
it yourself.
training, 2 days of training, you can take on the rest of this yourself.
You can do the
And,
maintenance
So
yourself.
that's one of the challenges that we have, that at the start you need to train people, but then they learn easily. Then you need to be careful to make sure it's
Maintain.
waterproof.
Yeah, you maintain it.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so very much. And Jix, you being the fun fact guy, tell us our fun facts about thin shell as we wind up.
Now, I would like to say that you know that in Rome there is a structure built in AD 125.
AD 125.
Yes, that was completed in AD 125. It's called the Parthenon, that has a dome on top of it.
Jesus was still an infant then.
No, he was dead
Was
by
dead
then.
Yes,
I think he was died in
Okay.
AD 33.
it was,
So maybe 100 years after Jesus
After,
passed,
okay.
the Romans completed their first shell structure. It was a dome. So the assumption is they put up a timber frame and added concrete in layers. So theirs is not reinforced because steel had not been used as a material. So they assume that it's a dome, it's a perfect dome that's about 43 meters in diameter. Now imagine you're 50 by 100 on the longer side, and then add another 13 feet to that, because that's
it's a
30
huge
feet.
one.
It's
Yeah.
a really huge. So it's a dome that's the diameter,
Yeah,
43 meters.
43 meter diameter.
It's roughly half a pitch, almost
Yes.
half
Yeah,
a
sure.
It was built back then,
football pitch.
and it's a perfect dome. A dome is a shell, like half a round shell that was built back then.
That's more of a thin shell.
Yeah, it's a shell concrete. It's not reinforced. It's not a thin shell,
But
it's
it's a shell
concrete.
concrete, yes.
It's
So
showing that
suppose-
I'm again saying, as usually I say on the podcast, that some of this technology has been around for a long time.
Sure.
And we need to look even far back, that we're not reinventing the wheel. We are doing something that's been around, but applying it for these times.
Sure.
So it's been around that long, and I wanted the audience.
So we
to
are
know.
creating awareness.
Yeah.
Yes, and I'm thinking when we get our money, we should go to that Parthenon, because I remember it
Rome.
had precast. Now it's having that kind of a dome. I think someone needs to pay a
to
visit.
it. So,
Sure.
a sponsor, if you're there,
As
we
far as
are
I-
ready to go for a study tour
Yes.
with other things.
and
in
we
it.
bring back much and more
Promise to
information.
young one.
Yes, and there you had it. If you want us to talk about something that you've always wanted to know in detail, please let us know through our YouTube channel. And still endeavor to follow us on all our social media handles at Facebook, our Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, everywhere, Innovation Consortium. So thank you so very much. And I've been your host, Brian Lyon.